Good evening. It's bourbonblog.com. I always have so much fun with Bryan Smith, my good friend, master distiller, Hard Truth Distilling Company, Nashville, Indiana. Some really limited edition whiskeys that he's done. The Kentucky Sweet Mash series, the Masters Distillers Reserve. These are so many delicious whiskeys you've released at once, Bryan.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, we like to keep it interesting. Why just put out one thing and let it shine? We just like put out seven things and just say, here you go. Here's our whiskeys.
I like that because about
Yeah.
this time of year, fall, well, throughout the year, but the fall, the winter, we're all like, oh, this distillery has released one or two new ones. And you're like, here are six. I'm surrounded
That's
by
right.
six we've been working on for a
Right.
while for you to enjoy. These have been a work in progress. I mean, you've been really working on these and aging these for a while, haven't you?
They have, and all joking aside, usually you don't release whiskeys, all that many whiskeys at one time, but the whiskey lets you know when it's ready,
Yeah,
and these let us know it was time, and so we got them in a bottle and got them out to the market.
I love it. Well, we'll talk about we'll touch on all these, but first, I think it's really interesting to say um, this limited edition Kentucky series. I mean, here is one of our favorite distilleries in the whole country, but in Indiana, you guys are doing so many unique um, pieces of work with rye, the sweet mash. But before you even did that, you started on a Kentucky whiskey. I mean, you had made this before the distillery was complete, right? What's the story?
Yeah, so this is our origin series, is what we're calling it. A lot of distilleries start by going and buying other people's barrels and creating their brand and then making their blends and running it through and selling it. Um, our approach with our sweet mash is kind of backwards. We released our own sweet mash first, um, and then we released this Kentucky sweet mash. So the story with this is, in 2017, 2016, 17, when we were planning this distillery where we are sitting now,
Yes.
um, we met with some, nice folks in Kentucky who were making some great sweet mash whiskey, and talked to them about, trying out our first recipes with them, and then that way, as we're building our distillery, and as we moved along, we would have a better idea of what our whiskey was tasting like
Right.
before we even fired up our stills for the first time. So, essentially, I made our first two bourbon mash bills, our BW1 and BW2, which the BW2 is a wheated mash bill, bourbon mash bill, and then our RW1, which is our rye whiskey mash bill one, which is that 94% rye, 6% malted barley mash bill. That if people are familiar with our sweet mash rye, the same mash bill that's out in the market now. So I took those recipes and I went to this partner distillery and uh, got some time on their stills essentially, and we produced, I think, two of the mash bills we ended up with 12 barrels, and one we ended up with 11 barrels.
Wow.
So only 30, what is that, 35 barrels in total, um, that we've had. They aged for about a year and a half. They aged for about 2 years in Kentucky, and then the rest of the time here in Indiana. And so I think originally our plan was we would use those and blend them into our liquid since it's our recipes. But what we found is that even though you have a very similar distillation process, similar yeast strains, similar barrel types, similar stills, the whiskey was just very different from ours.
Yeah.
It's delicious, but very different. So it's been fun because this is a way for us to tell our origin story about how we started with sweet mash, how our original recipes. So for people, and then so we decided to do is release them as single barrels. So we've got 34 retail partners out in the markets who each chose a single barrel, and they've got them in their stores on the shelves right now.
Wow.
And in Illinois, let's see, Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Florida.
So this is very limited. I mean, we're talking about for each one of these, there might be what, a couple thousand how many barrels or bottles?
Uh,
How many bottles we look?
yeah, so about two. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. Probably about 2,500 bottles
of each
per mash bill of each,
yeah.
and then that's it. We only made those 11, 12 barrels of each one. We did them 5 years ago. We've not done any since. We won't be doing any in the future. So really, if you're a fan of Hard Truth or if you're new to Hard Truth, this is really an opportunity for you to own a piece of our history that will never be again. So talk about unicorn bottles, man. These are about as unicorn as they get.
Yes, these are truly unicorn bottles. I mean, again, you're looking at something that you were doing to really experiment, to practice, but also laying it down to know that you were going to eventually release this, and you're not going to go to a distillery in Kentucky every year and do this. This is a one and done.
One and done.
One and done. And again, I'm holding Kentucky Sweet Mash with that rye mash bill one. Again, that's the first one we've seen from Hard Truth. And then you also have a Kentucky Straight bourbon whiskey that's from the same series, a bourbon, right?
Right. Yep.
Delicious. How were you pretty pleased with how that came out? That was really nice.
Oh man, both those bourbons are outstanding. I mean, it's we're one of the things that we've noticed with the sweet mash techniques. If you do it correctly, you can really create some pretty amazing consistency and quality of flavor through. And I think those whiskeys are about 5 years old. So with the bourbon, they're getting into some good space there.
So one is more weeded than the other.
Yeah, there's the BW2 is our weeded mash bill, and BW1 has rye as the flavor grain.
As the rye, BW1. Again, just both of these spent a couple years in Kentucky before coming to Indiana?
Yes. Yep, 2 years in Kentucky, a little over 2 years. And then we got them on a truck and got them up here, and they've been resting in Indiana the last 3 years.
And you're not too far from Kentucky there in Nashville, Indiana, but are there things that were happening in the barrel, aging there that added something in addition to the still? Walk us through all these little elements that made a difference along the way that you taste and think that happened.
Yeah, there's all of my partners that I use, from our coopers to our yeast supplier to our grain farmers, our still manufacturers. You're always striving to create not only good product but consistent product. But one of the wonderful things about whiskey is there's always this element of alchemy that exists when making whiskey. There are multi-billion-dollar global corporations that have been trying to cheat Mother Nature and make whiskey faster and make it cheaper. And the reality is it's just got to do its thing. And at the end of the day, it's going to be what it wants to be. So what we found is that these Kentucky sweet mash whiskeys, while delicious, now that we're starting to taste our own liquid from our own stills here on our property, they were very divergent from our product. So I didn't want to begin to blend those in small amounts and create, change our flavor profile, and then not be able to continue, to support that along the way. So I thought, well, this would be a great opportunity. Our retail partners have been begging for sweet mash single barrels. And so Ed, one of my partners, said, why don't we release these as single barrels? And I was like, that is a great idea. So here we are.
And it's perfect. It's a perfect way to see, even though it's the same recipe, the still, the warehouse, just these little pieces make a big difference. All delicious, also interesting. And I am seeing these a few places. And again, if you're a Hard Truth fan like I am, and I know a lot of people watching already are Hard Truth fans, find these limited editions. Also, it's so exciting, just released in time for the holidays. The Master Distillers Reserve. We have several sweet mash ryes, all that have been done with different types of malt. As you reminded me when I first got these, I tried these from the barrel. We've been really excited about these for a while. We have chocolate, caramel, and malted rye. Where should we start here? Let's taste a little bit of each.
Yeah. So before we jump into that, just to kind of put a pin in the Kentucky sweet mash.
Yes, go ahead, please.
It's okay. If you go to hardtruth.com and go to our spirit finder, we've got one of those little widget buttons up there. and you can actually scroll down and do the Kentucky Sweet Mash, and it will populate retailers near you that have it. We also, our distillery here picked a barrel of each, so you can, if you come to the distillery, you can also buy one of each if you want to add them to your collection. So yeah, the Master Distillers Reserve. It's a really fun series of rye whiskeys. If you're familiar with our Sweet Mash rye, it's a 94% rye, 6% barley. So it's obviously super rye forward, really nice and spicy, but really sweet. But you get a lot of that nice, I call it holiday spice from the rye. With our Master Distillers Reserve, these were 3 mash bills that we made in very small quantities over the last 3 years. Because we knew we wanted to make, as much as we could of our main line. So, the idea was to have these as small limited releases once a year. So this is the first year that we've released them. The next release for this series will be next year around the holidays. So, again, these are going to hit shelves, and once they hit and they're gone, they're gone. There's only about 10 barrels of each that we blended together to make these this release. So let's start with the RW3, which is our chocolate malt.
Yeah,
so
chocolate malt.
Yeah. So whereas in our RW1, our mainline sweet mash rye, we don't use any corn. With this, with the chocolate malt and the caramel malt, we actually are only going at 51% rye. Then we've got 38% corn, and then 11% chocolate malt. So the chocolate malted barley. So when you malt barley, obviously you throw it on the floor and they sprout it. They sprout the barley grain, and then they kiln dry it to stop the germination process, and that's what creates all those enzymes that help to convert the starches to sugar and distillate in the fermentation. But with the caramel and the chocolate malt, what you're doing is I think about it just like you think about a coffee bean. So if you go and have a cup of coffee with a blonde roast versus a dark Italian roast, those differences in roasts have only to do with how much time it was exposed to heat, right? And as the longer you expose it to heat, just like anything else, you're going to brown it more. So the caramel, the RW3, which is the chocolate malt, they've taken that malted barley and they've continued to roast it until it roasts down, and you really get notes of like espresso, cocoa beans, with that corn, sweetness of the corn.
Yeah,
and the rye spice. I've heard people describe a brownie batter kind of nose to it.
It has that kind of confectionery, slight bit of that bitterness from the chocolate.
Yes.
There's this beautiful peppery note too that it almost has this slight bit of like hot pepper note, like you're having a Mexican hot chocolate.
Right. That's a great call. I love like moles, and so when you get that chocolate and you get the spice from the rye, that it does almost have that mole kind of
delicious. This is so good. I mean, and again, the mash bill is approximately
51% rye, 38% corn, and then 11% chocolate malt.
So it's at 11% chocolate malt.
Yes.
And again, if you've had chocolate malted ryes or whiskeys before, you know how interesting they can be. I've never had one quite like this. I mean, this is it's layered, it's complex, it's holiday-esque. It's very warming. I mean, imagine this next to the fireplace on Christmas Eve.
Makes a tremendous old fashioned.
Wouldn't want to leave.
Yeah, that's right. It makes a tremendous old fashioned. You start getting Luxardo cherries in there with that chocolate notes. It's delicious.
109.6 proof. This is just almost 110. Drinks a little lower, very warm, but again, all of your whiskeys always drink lower. They do. They have a warming note.
Yeah. All the whiskeys that we've released thus far with our sweet mash whiskeys, we've released at cask strength, uncut, unfiltered. So, if we put 30 barrels together, whatever they came out of the barrel, we marry them together, and whatever that final proof is, we don't fiddle around with proofing water. We just leave it uncut, unfiltered.
Right. It's so approachable, but yet warm and just very,
Thanks, man.
Yeah, I love. So the chocolate malt is again one to track down. Once a year. Now, next year when you do these, are you going to do the same ones or a little different?
So I've got several experimental mash bills in the aging in the rick house. So
Right.
next year we're going to go through and taste through some barrels and some different mash bills, and not sure exactly what will be released next year. So we've got a few other tricks up our sleeves that you guys haven't tasted yet. So what, I thought this would be a fun way to really, a lot of times people will only offer these as a distillery only product, but we really want, we've got a lot of great retail partners out there in the world. And as we, make our footprint move farther and farther away from the distillery, I wanted to make sure that we distribute these out to all of our markets.
Yes. Yeah, I love it. So many good ones. And again, you see Brian, he's joining us from Nashville, Indiana. They're at Hard Truth Distilling Company. Make sure that if you're going to be going that way over the holidays or anytime, experience one of their tours. And the tours are just continuing to grow. The experiences you're giving guests, whether it's through the restaurant, through the tour, the cocktails, the bar. I mean, you guys are always doing something new there, aren't you?
Yeah, we had a huge fall here. Fall's a big time in Brown County, and we had, a lot of people on this property this fall. It was a lot of fun. So we're not hamstringed with a lot of the rules that they have to live with in Kentucky for experiences on distillery properties. So
Right.
we have 325 acres. When you come onto our property, you can go to the tour center and get you a cocktail and start your experience. It's a great place to bring, your family, because the restaurant and the music outdoors. We've got a 300-seat restaurant, 1,000-person outdoor music amphitheater with live music. We do side-by-side ATV tours, mixology classes. It's kicking the pants. If you can't have fun here, you can't have fun.
Yes, you'll never want to leave. I mean, you could even schedule a couple days there and still there's something new to do. And that the amphitheater you've grown, I mean, it was already big. You have grown it. You can have some pretty large concerts.
We can, and we've got some cool things cooking for next year as far as some bigger acts to come in and hopefully anchor some events that we're going to throw this next summer.
Incredible. So good.
Yeah.
Well, hey, and I'll have to say, talking about music, I'm going to be seeing our friends from Straight No Chaser here in a few weeks.
Oh yeah,
they're going to be in Evansville for the show. I'm going to be taking some whiskey backstage for them to. I know they already have plenty of that vodka. I'm going to take some whiskey backstage.
Oh yeah. No, they're gonna be in Bloomington. My wife and kids and I are gonna go to see them as well around the holidays. They're always kicking the pants around the holidays. It's fun.
Yes, they are incredible. So which one do we want to go for next? Malted or caramel?
Let's do the caramel malt.
Let's do the caramel malt. All right.
Yeah.
You can see, when I first got this one, I really started cracking into it. I love this. This is great. They're all really good though.
Caramel so that's our RW4, which is rye whiskey 4 mash bill. Yeah. This one is the same percentages in the grain bill as RW3, our chocolate malt, but instead of the chocolate, we've subbed caramel malt. So caramel malt is just malted barley that's not quite been roasted as far. So with this, I get more of that like caramel corn, sticky toffee, really nice lingering sweetness. I think the blend of these barrels ended up at a little bit higher proof than the chocolate malt. So you're definitely going to taste a little, experience a little bit more of that proof. Some people like the proof up there. I think this one's in the 117 range. So it's a little bit higher in proof, but it's got a tremendous nose. I love the nose on this one.
And it's, again, same recipe. The only thing you changed was the caramel malt.
Correct. Yeah.
Such a completely different experience. I mean, both
is.
Beautiful rise, beautiful spice, but that caramel I mean, coincidentally, it comes through with those sweeter kind of coffee, kind of creamy notes a little bit. It's so good.
It does. Very creamy. I get kind of some of a, I'm not much on my descriptions, but I get kind of a nutty toffee kind of thing on the nose.
I get kind of some kind of like chocolate bar that has some nutty and toffiness in it. Almost. I was trying to think of what I would liken it to that's holiday like. I get kind of that. Is it pronounced Toblerone or Toblerone?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah,
I get a little of that kind of stickiness from the inside,
yes.
the milk chocolate.
Ooh, that's good.
Oh, that's beautiful. I mean, it's beautiful and it's just a very elegant sugar on this. The sugars are really there. They're just very elegant.
Thank you very much. One thing I've found about all of our sweet mash whiskeys, as I'm tasting through stuff through our rack houses, we've got this really, this through line of a flavor profile for all of our whiskeys that, with some of them, it expresses itself with a little more fruit forward, but a nice complex sugar profile.
Yes.
Across all the, we haven't released a bourbon yet, but I'm tasting our bourbon, constantly in the rack house, and that same through line comes through with the bourbons as well. So, I can say that, I'm so proud of the team that we have working here that works so hard to make this whiskey, and to be able to come out of the gate and, have a whiskey that really has your fingerprint in a specific flavor profile that's consistent through all your whiskeys is really the goal. It was the goal for me, for us,
This, I love it. I think this is just really beautiful. Again,
thanks, man.
Yeah, you're welcome. Completely unique experience. All of these that we're talking about, these are all at your distillery and other places.
Yes, yeah. So you can find them here at distilleries, and then if you're in somewhere in Indiana where there's a Big Woods location or another Hard Truth bar, they'll be sold there as well. And then of course we have retail partners throughout. We're in, I think, 21 states now. So it's definitely Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Kentucky, Tennessee, Florida, and now just most recently Louisiana and Texas. You can find our sweet mash.
And the rye is
and New Hampshire
too.
Yeah.
The variety of whiskeys too. You see the Sipes behind me. You have the smoked barrel. You have the original. You have the rye smoked. You have cinnamon vodka, gins, rums. You have a little something in the creams. You have something for everybody. I mean, you all have grown this to be so many wonderful products all in your portfolio.
Oh, thanks, man. Really appreciate it. Yeah, we with having 10 bars of our own, we understand kind of those elements that make a great, bar back. And so we really worked hard here to create some great cordials, some great core spirits, non-whiskey spirits, that kind of help to round out your bar. And then also we've got some pretty outstanding creams in the market. We just launched a new cream for the holidays, peanut brittle bourbon cream, a new bourbon cream that's out in stores now. And it's really good. So it's selling like crazy.
That I love peanut butter brittle. That could be one of the first peanut brittle bourbon creams I've ever heard of. I don't think anybody's ever done it.
I don't think there's another one out there. At least if there is, I'm not aware of it. No.
I don't think it's been done. That's so good, and so many interesting ones too. You have the peanut butter whiskey. You have so many unique ones. How many different products do you guys have now?
Oh shoot, Tom! I think last time I checked, we're getting close to 30, I think. Which is unusual, but it's kind of fun when you're a person that likes great flavors. I think one of the things we discussed a lot as we were building the distillery is, typically distilleries get known for one or two products. So
right.
And so we were a little bit cautious about introducing so many things, but they all turned out so good, and the response was so great by our consumer base that they just kept buying it. So we just kept making it.
Well, you kept on going with the very best.
That's right. But really, our passion here at Hard Truth is really for the whiskeys. So
it is
when you come here under our property, you'll see this whole place was built for a whiskey experience, and so we're really growing our sweet mash whiskeys.
It truly is some of the best whiskey in the country. I mean, what you've done has been it's been so spot on, so unique, such just beautiful, deep flavors. So we'll go to this last one here too, and I'll say again, thanks everybody watching live. We do this at least once or twice a week. Make sure you like this, subscribe it, share this video. I always bring on distillers that I'm a big fan of, but hey, if there's some that you all, the viewers, you want to see, tell us down below. We love hearing about what you're sipping, about what you're looking for the holidays. And these are definitely, get one of each of these if you can find them, or just one of them for the holidays you're going to love. This last one is is it the malted rye?
Yeah, so this one's really great. We had a kind of went back and forth on what to do. I love malted rye whiskeys. So and malted rye as a grain is extremely expensive. So I wasn't sure whether we want to do 100% malted rye or whether we wanted to do, a different percentage. So what we ended up finding was, a little bit more of the just straight rye grain than so it's about 54% rye and 46% malted rye. So it's 100% rye grain in this whiskey, but with almost half of that rye, it went through the malting process like they do barley, where they sprout it and then kiln dry it. So when you do that, especially with rye grain, you end up with this, I think about, chocolate malt, like the malted milkshakes or malted milk balls. There's a creamy, complex sugar characteristic that happens during that malting process, and especially with rye. And with this one, I got to be honest with you, I love all three of these, and sometimes I go back and forth on which one I like the best. But if I'm actually having a pour, I find myself pouring this malted rye, I think, more than anything.
This has a lot going on from the beginning to the end.
I get some fruit on the front.
Yeah, the fruit's there. I mean, it really does come through, kind of a soft fruit nose. And the flavors, it has a lot of layers.
It does, yeah. I'm always striving to get that, I want complexity, but then also balance, because sometimes things can be so complex that either the flavors are muddled or, you go too far off onto some tangent, and then it becomes so almost too unique. So I always, I like to play with flavors and take mash bills and pull in one direction or another to bring out certain flavors. But at the end of the day, I want a balanced pour that you can pour in a glass and enjoy on its own.
This is balanced. It has wonderful structure.
Thanks, man.
There's a touch of something that's between kind of the spice and smoke with the fruit, kind of a grilled fruit almost.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. What proof is this one? This is 112 or so.
Yes. Yeah.
The last one was around 118. Again, all phenomenal. You've done such a great job.
Thanks, man.
Yes, the Distillers Reserve, which again, for Distillers Reserve, for this limited edition series, we will likely just see these during the holidays.
Yeah, so if you look at the top of the label there, I can't remember, there's between 8 to 10 barrels of each of those that we married together to make these blends. So, there's really no more than probably 2,500 bottles of each one that are going to be out in the market. And again, this will be it for 2022. And we won't see this series again until 2023. And we'll introduce hopefully three more unique and awesome limited reserve whiskeys for you.
Delicious. All these from the Kentucky limited edition that, again, came from a distillery that you had used, had a little time there on their stills, making the recipes that you went on to make at your all's distillery. Quite a story you've told. Not a typical story that I've seen other distilleries do that say, hey, we know it's coming. Maybe they'll source it. Maybe they'll wait. But the way you've been able to tell this and to bring other regions and different types of ways of doing things into the picture, I think just really reflects the approach that you have that's creative and that's really well thought.
Oh, thanks, Tom. I really appreciate it. Yeah, it's there's a lot to be said for, the some of the traditions of distilleries that have hundreds of years of tradition behind them, and the beautiful thing that brings, but we don't have, we're not confined by those traditions. So while I like to, I am a traditionalist when I make my whiskey. I don't like to experiment too far away from centerline. But, as far as taking the experience on the property a little bit farther away, or trying different mash bills. I feel like we've been, graced with a little more freedom to kind of play around and do new things.
Yes,
Awesome.
yes, you have. Well done with these, Brian, and look forward to.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, look forward to more here real soon with you. And again, thanks to all the Hard Truth and Bourbon Blog, whiskey fans, just all the fans and friends watching us. Again, I'll just say, take a moment, like this, share this, keep on spreading the good word of Hard Truth. And hey, no matter what holiday you're celebrating over the holidays, it's something that can pair so well with an elegant dish, or just be a great whiskey to bring out next to the fireplace, right? I mean, it just.
Oh yeah, for sure. And go to hardtruth.com if you want to learn anything more about us, find out where we are. Like I said, we've got the little Spirit Finder widget. And if you're near Nashville, Brown County, Indiana, definitely come by the distillery. This is not a filter behind me.
That's real.
This is the actual thing. So we've got a big, beautiful distillery here and gorgeous grounds, and we'd love to have you here.
Great. Hey, thanks for joining us live from the Distillery, Brian, and happy holidays.
Thank you, Tom. Cheers.